Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Empowerment Panel. My name is Noor Farisha Abdul Shukur, and I will be your moderator for the panel session. Okay, and how everyone's doing? Everyone doing good?
We're doing very well, Noor. How are you?
Fantastic. Okay, I'm good. Okay. Hi, Jane. Hi, Dr. Pauline, Stefan, Nora, and Sophie. Okay. Okay, so we're going to start off with the first question for our empowerment panel question. Okay, what does empowerment mean to you?
I think can we all just jump in and
Yes.
answer, or are we gonna ask questions?
Yes.
Gonna pick each one of separation. I think empowerment is actually making, decisions on your own judgment, not getting other people's opinion involved in both your professional and your, personal lives. Basically, making your own decisions. That to me, and being authentic and real to who you are, that is to me self-empowerment, among other things.
I'd like to say, I think I agree totally. And I think it's about a good belief system in yourself, believing in yourself. And, women and men do this differently. My study of gender dynamics shows me that, but it is about a core belief, and that can change any time in your life, depending on what happens to you. So it's empowerment to me means keeping an eye on yourself, not getting in your own way. And as Nora said, is not letting other people
Define
persuade you of something different.
That's right, precisely.
Yeah, I can add on that. I think that empowerment is ultimately actually a choice that you make. Like you cannot empower anyone who doesn't wish to step into their power, right? Like you can offer people stages, opportunities, anything that you believe will help them grow or make them more empowered. But unless they feel like they want to own up to their own power and they believe that they're actually capable, there is nothing to empower. And I think, so basically, I think what's very important is that if you seek to empower people, that you have to start to speak towards that mindset shift. And to empower people is, for me, meaning to enable people, remind people basically of their own capabilities and their worth.
But basically, in order for us to empower other people, I think we need to be empowered ourselves and making our own decisions from within to make that changes happening. But nobody can tell you to change but you yourself. So that's very important, because sometimes people refuse to change for the betterment of their soul, spirit, and mind.
I think what you guys have said is absolutely fantastic, and I follow all of that in terms of my belief system in empowerment, and it is a choice, absolutely. I'm also a big believer that you can listen to other people, but ultimately you can listen, but if that person you're seeking advice from isn't willing to follow out on the advice, or isn't going down the same road as you, then it's not necessarily going to empower you. So we can listen to advice, but it needs to come from the right person to ignite the ability to empower oneself from within. So if you listen to the right person, you get the right advice, then it can be a catalyst to you finding your empowerment yourself and being able to move forward yourself. But it's very common. The thread is very common. It has to come from within, and you have to want to seek out that empowerment that we all have inside. So empowerment, is that ability to look at it, look at some fear in the eye, and overcome it. So
I think the word catalyst is such a key word. because that can come from external circumstances, or as you said, like from somebody that you hear speak, or that you see live the life the way that you would like to live it yourself. But anything that can sort of like provoke the willingness to change inside of you is ultimately needed to step into your power.
I mean,
onto
I
that.
like. Sorry, go on, Pauline.
I was just going to say, building onto the catalyst thing, it's a word that we use in chemistry, right? If we think about it, I don't think that empowerment is a certain state that you reach as a pick up a mountain. I think it's a constant process of unlearning and learning and redefining and rediscovering yourself and others. So, because sometimes when we talk about self-empowerment, or, we tend to think about like it's a concrete, like we're in a bubble of this is who I am or this is what I believe. Yes, you need that, but also you have to keep constantly unlearning and learning and learn from the environment. I think it's a very dynamic process, and that's why maybe we're today talking a little bit about how we should redefine empowerment. That's a whole narrative, to redefine the narrative around empowerment. So this is going to be a very interesting talk.
Well, we're learning every day. Every day we learn new things, and learning from other people, learning from ourselves, through our life experiences, whatever it is. I would say that pin every meaning of your life experiences, whether it's good or bad, positive or negative.
Yeah.
In order for us to empower ourselves throughout our trials and tribulations and become a better version of ourselves.
Absolutely. I came up with this idea, which I shared in my session, but I think it's very important that we need to also, women can empower men. So I came up with the word empowerment has got men in it. So I'm glad that we've got Stefan here today. Because we need to share empowerment with the world in terms of being in COVID and thinking about creating our future together. I think it's a very important stage in our life.
Well, I think in terms of like the current situation, it could be, again, one of those catalysts, right? Like a lot of people are facing now very challenging situations that are not of their choosing or not of their conscious choosing. So now they're facing these problems, and unless they are willing to step into or at least explore what their power might hold for them, they won't be able to come out of that. So it might be a real serious catalyst that we're actually now all collectively facing, in order for us all to redefine that and to go inside and ask ourselves, like, what does our body or our mind really want from us to step into our power?
And you've got the question.
This is a time very.
Well,
I mean, with the COVID-19, sorry. No, I'm just saying that this is a very good time for us to really get back into our own self, and a lot of, like, where are we going? Where do we go from here? What do I want to do? What is my mission? What's my life purpose? What's my calling? Because you know what, at the end of the day, only you know where and how and why do you want to become that person. Because you have your own experiences, your own challenges, and your own things going on. Nobody knows you except you. Seriously.
Yeah.
But we can learn from each other. We are learning from everyone.
Absolutely.
Right.
But I was interested in the next question on there was about the skills that we need, and I think that's where there's so many there's skills that we can learn, but I think it's more about opportunities. We're in a situation where we've got amazing gifts, natural gifts, all of us, every single person in the world. If only everybody in the world believed that, we could actually do something much more magical. But it's actually seeing the whole situation as an opportunity as opposed to a problem. Right. And that's that first mind shift, isn't it? Even when
precisely, I do agree with you in totality. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I think that mind shift is also what I describe as something that is a shift from being a victim of life circumstances towards being a creator of life circumstances.
Yes.
I think that a lot of people
That's right.
feel that life is something that happens to them.
I mean, you can always go around blaming the world,
Yes.
blaming your neighbor's dog, blaming your uncle, your auntie, your parents, everyone, but not blaming yourself. So I think empowerment also is taking responsibility for your own actions and taking actions to be that
Yes.
person.
Yes.
I sometimes struggle when working with. I work with ladies who are struggling with self-identity, going through perimenopause and then into menopause, and it's putting labels on people. I find it unnecessary. So we're talking about being a victim or whatever that may be. Creating a label for someone often suppresses their understanding as to where you're trying to lead them. So without applying a label to someone and sharing that they are able to open up and share how they feel, show you where they want to go, starts to empower them from that very first step. Sometimes putting a label on someone and identifying them as a victim, or to explain to them about being a victim in life, puts the brakes on the next step to empowerment. In my experience of working with ladies who are struggling with self-identity. So yes, I can see that they are creating a victim type mentality, but I'd never say that to them. I'd never give them a label, because as soon as they're given a label, then they wear that label, whether they want to or not. So subconsciously, we can give people labels that they find it harder then to get out of. So they're taking a backward step before they're going forwards. So creating an environment where they're able to share their emotions and their feelings and scratching below the surface is empowering them. So it's not always about the end goal, in my opinion. Empowerment comes from the very first step that anyone takes.
Maybe we could think about a relationship, a healthy relationship with our fears, acknowledging that we have our fears, but seeking solutions to overcome that fear, getting out from your comfort zone. You know what I mean? Everybody comes in with their own demons and fear, but once you get out of it, you can just, claim authority on your own power. So let's try and have a healthy relationship with our fears and using our pain, turning them into wisdom.
Absolutely.
How about that?
I want to pick up on,
Definitely.
I would like to pick up on, there's this thing about
Please do.
labels, and I agree with you, Stefan, in many ways, but I think that we've also becoming fixated by something being a label, but it's only a stepping place to go through to somewhere else. You could even say empowerment is a label. I mean, any word could be a label.
Yes.
It's the intention that you put on it. So we can all be aggressive or passive or assertive. It's a choice. Any moment of time we have something come up, we go, God, oh no, I remember, have a magical conversation with myself. And one of the things that I teach is that a magical conversation with anybody or yourself is without judgment. So if we don't judge ourselves, but we do actually assess what we're doing at the time we're doing it. So if we become opportunity seekers rather than problem solvers, it's a mindset.
That's right.
And I mean, classic archetypes are very useful as guidelines and signs. So I always think labels can be useful if you're buying a can of goods so that you know what's inside the can. That's the label. But actually not, as you'll rightly say, not getting stuck in it, but also understanding that there are signposts in our life. If we're on the road or on life, that is the way we read them is what is important, which is all of us who are in the field of helping others to feel more empowered, whatever that means for them. It's about creating that space, which is what I think we all feel very passionate about. And I do think what Nora said is, we need purpose. There are allegedly, I'm a bit of a statistician, that the reckoning is that 15% of the world is engaged in something better and more and higher consciousness, and 85% are disengaged and disempowered. So we got a lot of work to do. Okay, guys.
Yeah, I think regarding the labeling discussion, like,
Okay.
I think regarding the labeling, I think a lot of the problems that that's happening on that front is also that we self-label. So even without people telling us who we can or cannot be, I believe that a lot of the time we create our own stories in our own minds about what we are and what we're capable of, and we start believing them. And as soon as we believe our own stories about what we are and aren't capable of, we will only recreate that in our own lives. So I've come also from that experience where I, for instance, always was fighting with a lack of boundaries. So I would have a lot of stress and burn out because I was taking on all this work. But until I realized I was actually the one taking on all this work and not having all these boundaries and not communicating about what I truly needed in my work environment, from my colleagues, from my boss, from anyone around me, until I was able to communicate that, acknowledge that, I would always create these situations. So it's very important, I think, that for me, that was a catalyst actually to dive into who I am, what I want. But for a lot of people, I think it doesn't have to come to that far, like that far end where you feel so like overwhelmed or so pushed and so pulled by everyone that you have to, create a moment for yourself and decide who or what do I want to be. I think that this is a very key question when you talk about empowerment. Who and what do you want to be in the world? And are you actually demonstrating that?
Yes.
Well,
Actually,
what you said was true because, I mean, the pen, we have to remind ourselves that we pen in our hands. So we create our own stories, whatever that may be. I am not going to give you, Sophie or Pauline, my pen for you to create my story. Or neither am I going to take the pen from Dr. Pauline and asking, you to create my story. No, we are having the pen in our hands. So there you go. You are responsible for your mind, therefore your results. Basically.
actually, I agree with you. But in some other sense, I want to share a little bit of story because we were talking about this. And I'm doing my doctorate degree at UPenn, and we're having discussion around labels. And there was this very interesting question when one of the students asked, "Is it possible for us to not label? Actually, we're living in labels, and as a human being, you have certain lenses to look at the world." So we had this very healthy discussion around, is it possible for me to really say this is myself? Because, for example, when I worked back in Korea, I was working in a chemical industry which was very male dominant. And I could see myself, just as Stefan said, how they will view me, what I represent as a woman. So there were certain things that subconsciously designed the way how I should act. So, even though I thought it was my own choice, looking back, a lot of circumstance, a lot of context subconsciously influenced me. And when I came to the United States, I was looking at me changing as a chameleon. I was changing my colors and I was adapting. So I was like interacting with the world. So at a certain point, I was a little bit curious. Is this really coming from who I am? I mean, where is the boundary between this is my original thought and this is what the world gives me? At one point, it was a little bit. So that's when my aha moment came because then I realized, oh, maybe this is like so you can detach from what lens you're looking things through, and you can make a conscious choice of which lens is suitable for me, and not only for me, for us in certain ways. So you can dance between the different lenses or labels. I don't think that I don't think that label is fixated. I don't think the fixated labels are good, beneficial, but I also admit that sometimes I'm also succumbs to some labels, and I do that. I think
but we can
also very
change our
important.
labels.
Sure,
we can
sure,
change
we can.
our labels.
It's
I
not
mean,
fixed.
It's not fixed, it's ever changing. And even whatever happened during childhood, if you were labeled during childhood, but it is up to you again in your hands to make the choices, not to be attached to that label. You have your own power to make changes from within.
I love what you said about the pen, because I literally had that experience once where I was in a less than ideal life circumstance, and I am a writer for profession. So I was sitting down with my pen and my notebook and started to write, what if I was the author of my own life? And the first
We all are.
exactly, the first thing that then happened to me was the realization, but you are. And then not what if, it is you are. And
Because
I just started to realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm not just writing the book or the story or the texts for other people that I want to tell. I'm also writing my life story and my own life. So that realization then really started to wake me up to the idea that maybe if I don't like certain chapters, I can rewrite them, and I can edit them, and I can even close a book and write a new one. And that's attached to what I've written before, because just like if you are a writer, literally, sometimes you feel very connected to what you have written, right? You feel like as if it's yours, but it's not yours.
Yes.
It's the words that come to you, or that are meant for some purpose, or you are, giving them to a client, or you're meant to reach an audience, whatever that they are for. But when you realize that you're actually capable of writing exactly that which you wish to be, that was my most empowering moment, to realize that I can actually write, be not attached to what I've written in the past, and then write something new.
That's so interesting, Sophie, and I want to extend that a little bit to our audience. Have any of you ever written your own obituary? And you know what an obituary is?
Yeah.
It's a very, very good exercise. I did it back in 2007. I think I'll do it again, because you have to plan ahead. So you have to plan when you might die. So I decided I would pass on in 2050, at which point I'll be 101. But the challenge is your own purpose in that, but also what is it what you see in that period of, given COVID and everything, what do you think 2050 will give us as a world? What will be happening? What legacy are you leaving? That, I think, is the ultimate empowerment, which comes from purpose. What do we imagine? I want world harmony. I do want world peace, and I do want lack of, but if we had harmony, I believe we would have everything else. So what is it we can expand our imagination, using our knowledge, gathering our experience, and using our imagination to what the world would be if we all are on purpose and passionate and loving.
Having said that, Pauline, again, I'm repeating myself that only you know what you want.
Well, that's right. You're extending what Sophie said. You're writing it.
Your own life experiences that makes you who you are. I mean, only you know your passion, your motives, your reasons for doing things, and what is your higher calling.
Well, I think it's also
so
probably
get that pen.
Don't know that, right? Like a lot of people
get that pen out.
Their purpose. They don't know their higher calling. They don't connect with what they truly want. They don't know that at all. So they just live at the whims of what society expects them to do. And a lot of people,
which is not what empowerment is all about.
Which is exactly, yeah. So, and I believe that this is like that we've all taken, but I think that a lot of people maybe also that are listening now might still be sort of wondering, so if I'm gonna change my life, what do I want? What do I need? And how do I discover for myself what that is?
That is why earlier on I said I think one of the many definitions of empowerment in one word is authenticity. That means, you know what? I need to be real to who I am at the very core level. So that's where you have to go and do a lot of self-reflection.
Absolutely.
So I mean,
Stefan,
being real.
Stefan, what do you think about all this future imagined authenticity as a man's point of view?
Well, I don't think it necessarily needs to be from a male or female perspective. If you're talking about a a position of harmony. So if the world was able to operate from a level of harmony, then what does harmony require? Harmony requires love. So if we operate from a position of love with everything that we do, then everything else we want falls out of that in a positive way. So creating harmony from the inside first, looking at ourselves from a position of love, looking at our nearest and dearest, our family members, the people who we work with, people who we don't, if we tell ourselves we don't like that person, if we look at that person from a position of love, it creates harmony. And that's a ripple effect that moves on from you to the next person, and we radiate positive energy away from us. So it's really intriguing listening to how we create empowerment and what empowerment is. I'm a big believer in just thinking from my own personal position of love, whether it's someone I engage with, whether I feel like I can connect with that person or not. It doesn't matter whether my perception is they're a good person or not. If I look at that person and think from a perspective of love, then I'm just radiating that out, and that's my harmony radiation going out right there. So, and then out of that comes my own empowerment. So I don't need to think about what my higher calling is, what my greater purpose is, any of that, because it starts from within, from my position of love. So I don't think it matters about it being a male or female perspective necessarily. I think we can all love, irrespective of what our gender is.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you, but then it doesn't always happen in the world. We know that there is a lot of polarized arguments and things that aren't working, because we're all wise here. I mean, we have the advantage of being on this amazing conference and being empowered. But it is interesting about this radiating and, radiating love. I totally agree, Stefan. I think that's what it's all about. It's radiating love, even when there's things around you that may not be something you actually like. You can still radiate love.
Absolutely,
like I
absolutely.
said,
I don't need to agree with what's going on in another country, because ultimately, I can't affect that. I can't affect what's going on in the US personally. But if I look at it from a judgmental point of view, then it affects my inner ability to radiate love. So it creates my own inner frustration if I'm looking at something I cannot affect.
Yeah.
So I separate myself from what else is going on in the world, and I operate from a position of love first and foremost. And I try my utmost, and it's not to judge, because if I judge, then I'm assuming my view is better than somebody else's, which means I'm not operating from a position of love. So if I recognize in myself that I'm judging, then I'm not empowering myself or the situation. So it happens because I'm learning from my past and my experiences, but it's super important that if I recognize I'm judging, I'm not empowering me or the situation or the person. So
I think what you said about what you can and cannot change is also such an empowering thought. Like, because a lot of times people feel overwhelmed by situations outside of themselves that they have no control over, and they focus only on the things that they cannot control. So, for instance, the climate, or COVID, or world politics, or whatever that they have no real tangible connection with. So it's really hard to change things that are completely beyond your scope of and in your proximity of changing, right? So what you said about radiating love, that makes a direct impact to you, and like you said, ripples out to the rest of the world. So if you want to change anything for better, I think that is the empowered way of looking at it, because then you actually can feel direct effect of that intention, that good intention that you put forward, and also not detract your own energy away from towards things that you cannot change, that you cannot actually have an effect on.
Well, there is a saying.
Influence anything, but
there is a saying that says that in order for the world to change, you have to make the changes you first. Okay, we
God is the
expect the world to change if we ourselves don't make the changes to change or the
wish in the
decision to
world.
change.
I think you're right,
I'm
no, but
breaking.
we also
I'm
need to
breaking.
we also need to understand the collective energy of love. And we're living in a world where lots of people are divided at the moment. So I think it always starts from within for all of us. But it's really taking everything to a higher consciousness level of really belief in humanity, that we can not just survive.
I love that, Pauline.
We can thrive. It's not just about survival, it's about thrival. I don't think that's a real word, but it's
I love
about honest emotions, and really
raw, honest
not trying
emotions.
to control things that we don't know, but being optimistic about it in a realistic way. Does that make sense?
It does, absolutely. Let's spread more kindness, compassion,
absolutely,
and empathy to humanity. Choosing those beautiful words. Spread kindness.
There was a question on here I would like to put out, is this thing about leaders empowering others, because I think that's one key, is that we're all leaders. And there's a difference between power with a capital P and power with a soft P. That the power inside empowerment is a gentle empowerment and embracing and collectively bringing us together. But we also need more leaders, and I'm political leaders maybe, but just leaders of business. I'm very interested in how businesses are becoming people focused, and that's what I think is coming. The change that's happening that I see in the business world, in the entrepreneur world, is that men and women coming together with real synergy and empowering each other to create something different. So whether it's social distancing or remote working, whatever it is, it's a very different version of the women empowerment stuff that's been going on for 30 years. We're now already we're all on the same track,
path. Yeah,
we're in the same party, and we need to have a lot more energy about, and I talk about synergy a lot. The synergy is coming together the parts. And you're quite right, Stefan, that, it's not about the men or women, but we are different. We have different life paths, and the differences are beautiful. And I talk a lot about valuing differences is a huge empowerment, because we are, if you look at nature and you see a load of trees, you don't say, oh, they're all the same. They're all different. And we're all different, and we're beautiful and stunning.
In our own
I
ways.
love how you address the collective. Yeah, the synergy. I think that's really important.
Now moving on to the next question. Okay. Yeah.
Which question do you want to tackle, Laura?
Marisha, can't hear you.
Okay, and now moving on to the next question. Yes? Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello?
I can hear you, Marisha.
Okay. Yes. Now moving on to the next question.
No, we can't hear you.
Why is it important to engage men in the conversation of woman empowerment?
I kind of lost you there. Can you repeat it again? Because there was a moment of I couldn't hear you. Can you repeat the question again, Marisha, please?
Okay.
I lost you for a while.
Yes. Okay. The question is why is it important to engage men in the conversation of woman empowerment?
Because they're
very
there.
Interesting question.
because
they're part of us.
Important. It's super important to involve men in the conversation, because it would be like guessing what women want as a form of empowerment. We can't guess what they want. The problem, I think, a lot of the problems in the past have been about it being male dominated, and men just guess what women want from something, to help create something before they even ask what it's all about. So if you tell a man, this is how I feel empowered, if you're in a heterosexual relationship and you ask your male partner, you say, this is how I want to feel empowered, then that's an understanding immediately right there. He understands how you create your empowerment. So there has to be a sharing of how women want to feel empowered, be empowered, what you see as a vision of empowerment, for men to go, okay, I get it now. This is where you want to go. This is how I can help and facilitate. If you want me to help and facilitate, if you don't, then I know why you're doing the things you're doing. So I think it's super important. So both sexes, if we're talking just males and females, then the understanding's there. We know why these things are happening, what the outcome, what the desired outcome is that we're striving for. And we work together much better because there's less head banging, there's less head butting. And it means there's so much more understanding, without a doubt.
Precisely.
Yeah. There is,
so it's okay for us. So it's okay, Stefan, for us to tell you what we want.
Of course.
Like, directly,
why would you not?
in your faces.
Absolutely. Why would you not?
Okay, with that.
The reason is basically that we're not separate, right? So I mean, it's really strange to have a conversation on one-sided about anything, basically, because we're all in this together, right?
Precisely.
So it wouldn't make sense.
It is, and it's my very core subject. And when I did the session earlier today in Malaysia, I invited the men to describe women and the women to describe men. But the key to that exercise is listening. It's not actually what you write. It's actually looking at the list and going, oh, wow, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. And I've done this hundreds and hundreds of times. And it's always fascinating because sometimes the same words appear, sometimes different. But it's a conversation about understanding each other. Exactly what Stefan said is ask and clarity. The way we talk is never understood exactly the way we say it. Let's take that premise, that every word is potentially interpreted differently, but that's part of the magical conversation, is to say, okay, I didn't understand that. What would that mean in terms of X, Y, and Z? And keep on having the conversation, because going back to valuing differences, there is no such thing as a difficulty. A difficulty is only when you don't understand the difference. So that's what I maintain. It's not always easy because we're always searching for new ways to communicate. But I think with COVID as well, we have that opportunity to really, really think about what it is we want together. I run something called Create Our Future Together. And it's only magical if we intend it to be, because we, as Stefan said, and I've said, you've got to get past your judgments and your assumptions and just welcome difference.
I think it's a fantastic time to be engaging in how you ladies empower yourselves, because I think COVID has been a real level playing field. It's leveled the playing field much more. So there's been that seeking out of information to try and fix something. So it's not now just the males that are going, okay, we're fixing this because this is caveman behavior. It's seeking out everybody's help to try and solve a global issue, which in itself is empowering women to step forward and offer solutions, which filters down then, I think. So I think the COVID pandemic, whatever the government are calling it, is allowing this empowerment movement for women to gain much more traction.
Definitely.
Without a doubt.
I see. What do you think? What do you think, Jane? We haven't heard from you. What do you think, Jane, about this?
About engaging men into the conversation? Well, I think it's we can look at through the lens of culture, because we're both. So if you want to let people to be their true self. You have to create some certain psychological safety. But when you're in the same culture, you know, you cannot, for example, women cannot like say, I want to be my true self, but you gotta, men should just listen, you know, because the culture, we're embedded in the same kind of vibe or energy. So in that term, we have to co-create a certain cultural future. But I think sometimes we miss that point in a way. Like when when women say, "Oh, we should talk and you should listen," and you already had your power, it's our turn, something like that. But it's like co-creating a culture where everybody can be honest to themselves and starting from where they are. And I think sometimes we also tend to speak where we should be, you know, but really, you know, starting from how I honestly feel, even some of our vulnerabilities or some of our stereotypes, even, but at a safer place. Not to judge each other or to blame each other, but to acknowledge how we are at this stage and to move forward, to create a culture together. That's why we have to engage men and other people together to move forward, I think.
Mm.
Absolutely.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that in terms of what you've said, that there needs to be an understanding of different cultures, because a lot of ideology comes from countries where there's so much diversity that there's not that cultural foundation. And it seems easy from a country like the UK, who says this is how you should be. And then you go to a country where they're still very cultural.
Right.
It doesn't translate. There's no direct
Exactly.
translation.
I'm so
just
glad you
because
pointed that out.
just because it seems like ideology from one country, you can't just pick it up and go, there you go.
Okay.
Now women should just stand up and go, because the cultural bias in that country
Yes.
does not fulfill that ideology. So there are different ways of empowering in that cultural space, country.
Environment, in that country.
Yeah, so
environment.
So really
I
start
love
from
what you just
listening.
said. I love what you just said there, because often the West just goes, right, this is how it should be done. Pick it up and put it down, and it doesn't work because there's no consideration.
I totally agree, but I also see something that I want to stipulate when you talk about empowerment, like what that means or what that results into is maybe different among different cultures, but it's still the same, that you're reminded of capabilities that you intrinsically hold, whether you are a woman or a man. And if you are enabled to do or act in a way that feels right to you, maybe what feels right to you is culturally determined to some extent, and you cannot completely detach from that, let's say, brainwashing in a way, because we've all been in a way had programs to believe look at the world a certain way, the West, the East, the South, the North, doesn't matter. Like the idea is still, I believe that's at core, is that who do you want to be in the world? Do you feel that it's okay to be who you want to be within the parameters that you currently are facing?
Yes, and I think one of the things is that it varies around the world, but looking at the world of business, there's some big changes happening in business, and some companies that are not going to survive, even big ones, but there are some who are really turning it around in terms of engagement with diversity, with men and women and all the other diversities, and saying, well, what's most important is that we know, love, and trust each other. You know, there are very different things happening. And if we build cultures based on knowing ourselves, loving each other, and trusting each other, those cultures still might look differently in Malaysia or the UK or the US. And that's what I found amazing living in Malaysia, was actually seeing the world from a different place. And in fact, you know, I had these maps where if you get 3 maps of the world with Malaysia in the middle, you can't even see America, and UK is off the edge. So these 3/3 of the world need to get to see each other. And almost COVID has, by separating us and locking us down, helped us to see each other through the screens. And I just think that's wonderful. I'm often on panels like this where you've got people from different parts of the world, and it's not unusual. So we can expand our horizons. And those of us who can do that need to ripple that energy and love to the ones who don't have that awareness yet. That's the issue for me. How do we spread our love of the world and the passion and the purpose to other people who don't have it yet?
Yeah,
Another beautiful
we can do it
fact.
slowly and surely.
Yeah.
Another beautiful.
And but also, I also believe that we have to learn to respect the other person's model of the world.
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, your version of the world may be different. This person's version of the world may be different. So stop judging and just respect each other's version of how they look at the world. We can't go on changing other people's perception of how they look at the world. I don't know. Do you agree?
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion on that?
Well, I think
totally.
if we just looked at the male-female issue, we know, and I've studied this, we know that there are countries in the world where women are still marginalized and penalized for being women, and that's happening in different parts of the world. And in enlightened communities, it's not happening. But it's about really understanding that we have choices now of how we can move forward without fighting and killing anybody or being violent or even being political.
Aggressive.
I think it's happening at a very consciousness level across the world, and conferences like this are so important because it's so many diverse people coming together and sharing ideas which are all aligned to this empowerment and self-development and love and rippling. This energy is fantastic. And we don't know where this energy is going.
Thank you to Andrea.
Yeah, back to
Thank you to Andrea.
What Stefan said, it's about the ripple, and then trusting, even if we don't see the end of the ripple, that it's just keep on going.
Yeah, and that the ripple is real is very much shown through COVID, right? I mean, in a way that whether how you look at COVID, it doesn't matter. Still, the truth is that if one person is affected in the world, apparently everybody is affected right now, right? So it's one of the first real problems I think that, at least in my generation, is happening, that everybody in the world is affected by. And that also feels maybe like an opportunity to realize, hey, maybe we are more connected altogether than we ultimately think, or that we used to think that we were.
Absolutely.
Looking at the hindsight, if we didn't have the COVID-19, we wouldn't be here talking among the six of us.
Absolutely.
There's always a reason for things to happen. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, seriously, think about that. There's always a reason for things to happen. Thank you to the COVID-19 that I'm meeting.
Everything happens for a reason.
There you go. There you go.
So there's a comment here from Terry. In many cultures, mothers raise their sons to believe they have to marry women who are submissive and who can be a good wife and mother, and inadvertently continue the cycle of women disempowerment. And he's absolutely right. I mean, there are. I'm part of a world organization looking at the SMEs across the world, and particularly looking at women. I was recently talking to women in Indonesia and India and parts of Africa. And, they still have a very hard job to keep their equality. It's so way out of kilter of what we know in the West and even in Malaysia. There was still marginalization of women. And this is why men and women together, and it's fantastic having Stefan here, that, the more men are empowered to be part of the Women Empower, is men empower women. Women empower men. It's both ways, but we do need to understand these cultures where there are still a lot of submission, and that we have to have conversations about how we can change this. I don't know what the answer is. It's just keeping on, as far as I'm concerned. Keep on sending the messages out to both the men and the women.
I guess when you're saying how to change this, I guess having faith and making that changes slowly from within. Having faith, having hope. There's hope out there. Believing that things will change for the better in time.
in time.
I think so too. I think so, definitely. In terms of, if we think of how we're talking about, and I live in the UK in the West, and how many decades it took to get to the position that the UK is in right now. And then we look at other countries where this is happening, as Terry mentioned, that it's as if that country is sort of 3-4 decades behind where the UK is right now. So it surely will take time. It's going to take a lot of time and effort and sharing knowledge and information to say that, because ultimately what we would say to them is that that's not right. What you're doing isn't right. So there's going to be a lot of resistance. No, this is working fine.
Yeah.
So it's going to take a lot of sharing and educating and understanding that it can work if you move a little bit further away from where you are right now, and to share what the possibilities could be, because we're so far removed from those countries that have those. They seem very much alien to what we live in today, that it's going to take a lot of time, as you said, Pauline. It's going to take a lot of effort, without doubt.
I'd like to add a little on that, because like I've been traveling for the past 2 years throughout Southeast Asia, and to be honest, like yes, I see the stereotypes lived, but at the same time I see the exact opposite also happening, and I have met so many greatly empowering, strong women who came from backgrounds that I was so struck by their strength and their power within their cultural circumstances. So to say that cultural circumstances alone would, make it impossible for people to step into their power, or that in other places of the world it's not happening, I'd say that's completely untrue, and I see a lot of actually signals the other way around, where I'm super surprised and impressed by what's happening. So I think there's
I'm so glad you shared that, Sophie, because I also have this I've lived in 7 different countries, and what I found is that when we sometimes say East versus West, or even like very close, China versus Korea, I'm a South Korean, it's as if this dominant story flattens all the complexities and diversities. But we do have to acknowledge the dominant mainstream story that people tend to easily, they wear their lens and see the world. And, that's the stories that their mothers inherit to their sons. But if you look closely, they're all different, type of people, type of couples. And we have to be aware of that, dominant story, to include diverse stories. I think that's why diversity is so important, and it's so related to empowerment, because it has all the context and all the textures and different, diversities and colors, which is not like this is dominant story, this is one ethnic standard or norm, but we respect all the different stories. And I'm so glad that Sophie you brought that up, for different aspects.
The exact reason that I brought it up is precisely this, because like the discourse in the West is pretty much that in order for women to be empowered, they have to be like men or better than men or something like that, or equal as men. Whereas I think it's not about being the same. It's about still staying different, because we are different, but valuing each other equally. And how that is reflected, whether that is being paid equally well, or I think, a lot of time from the Western perspective, we talk a lot about in terms of job opportunities and work, and we see that women in power are people who literally are, leaders of companies or stuff like that. Whereas I believe that empowered women is not just limited to that spectrum alone. Like women who are able to nurture and care and love and do things from a space of their power, that is empowerment. So it doesn't necessarily have to be from a perspective of Western success, because there's many different ways to look at what success is, and when you are feeling successful.
I Can I just say something?
Yeah.
I saw someone, Patty. Hi,
Okay.
Patty. How are you? And she said,
Do I have a
I want
comment?
to address
Yeah.
this to Stefan. Okay, some men out
Yes.
there are still getting intimidated by strong women. How true is that, Stefan? I would love to have your answer.
I can't answer that.
Seriously,
I can't answer that,
mean,
can I?
yeah, you have to. You're the man. You're the only man here.
I
I mean, that's what
can't
from
speak
Patty.
for I
No, you're
can't
not.
speak for all the
Not
men.
for you.
But
Only for you.
why? But
Yeah.
no, I'm not intimidated by strong women, because that's an amazing trait that a woman would feel that she can connect with who she is and speak her voice and share her mind.
Okay.
What is a strong woman? What is a strong woman?
But
I don't know.
I've heard that statement a couple of times as well. So that's why I wanted to bring it out, because I do know. I mean, I've been told that some men find strong women intimidating. I don't know how real that
I'm
is. I'm
sure.
not asking.
I'm sure they do. I'm sure they do,
But-
because it can work both ways.
I think, Stefan, you're a very aware and awakened man, and therefore you wouldn't be intimidated by a strong woman. But I think a lot of men are. They're afraid of women becoming more powerful than them. Whereas I think it's a balance like this. You know, it's actually understanding that there are different values now coming into everything we do. And what was interesting in that comment from Terry as well, notice the word submissive. I don't think anybody should be submissive to anybody else. So whether it's a man or a woman or a man. So it's understanding the culture, and it's not going in and saying your culture is wrong. It's saying maybe there's something better. You know,
maybe we can change.
The shift is coming. And I love the fact that you are such an awakened and conscious man, Stefan. And that this is what we need more and more of in positions of authority and influence, and like Nelson Mandela, who I always quote as he was a very empowered, intuitive, feminine-minded male. He had that energy around him, and we need that support. And we don't want anybody in the world to be submissive to somebody else. And it's like toxicity. You know, everybody says, "Oh, there's toxic this, masculine toxicity or whatever." It's just bad behavior. We don't want.
There ain't no way you're in a relationship for someone to define you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, Pauline? I mean, if you're in a couple, and this guy or this woman say that we want you to be like that, that's not happening. You know, it is not right.
We want this kind of balance. I remember reading a book. It said it was one up, one down. A good relationship is like this. A bad relationship is like that. So we want this one. We want this.
So there's going to be the respect, the tolerance, and the understanding of each other and where we're coming from and what we want from each other, and not like, hey, you know what? I want you to act a certain way. That's not happening.
It's the dance of life. I always say it's the dance of life, or in America say dance of life. But is when you're dancing in a partner dance, you need to understand each other. It doesn't work otherwise.
No.
You tread on the other person's foot and the dance is over.
So, Farisha, do you have any more questions for us?
So what do we got?
Farisha?
Yes. Okay. I like the comment coming from. Yes, I can hear you guys. I like the comment coming from Terry Gunny. And there are men who see strong women as rather attractive.
Oh, that's good.
That's so cool.
Thanks, Terry. Yeah.
Thanks, Terry.
Yeah. Thank you, Terry. Okay, now moving on to the next. Is gender equality a concern for men?
Well,
I think that kind of relates to the last question, doesn't it? I think it's what was really interesting is, and I don't know whether you watched my session, but one of the men who was at the session, Shwati asked him how he thought, and he said, well, it's really interesting because usually we focus on gender equality and that never works. But if we look at real synergy, then it becomes much easier to deal with equality, because it's not about us being the same. Equality for me is lots of other things, like not being submissive and being able to, get funds for jobs or be able to do things. That's it. But I thought that was very important, that maybe we focus too much on gender equality and not on synergy, gender synergy, and ways to do things differently.
I'm totally with you there, Pauline. And that's the first time I've heard anyone say that. With like you just said, I'm only going to repeat what you just said, basically, because it's fantastic. Because why would we push that equality thing? Why don't we just look at how we can work together better, how we can optimize relationships better, how we can love and share better.
Yes,
exactly.
Connect together. That's also something I'd like to add. Like, for instance, it can be difficult to communicate in a way that resonates with both parties if we speak in different language or different body language, or we feel that we are unable to express ourselves fully as we are. And I think this is where that word equality comes in. Do we both feel equally able to express ourselves fully as we are? Other than that, I don't see the word equal of any value in the whole situation either, because I believe we need bridges, not equality. We need connection. And like you said, please synergy. Yeah, that's what we're looking for.
Absolutely. And that's what will make our world flow.
A better place to live in.
Yeah, synergy is all about flow. So, we don't know necessarily where the flow is going because of everything else economically, but we can take hold of it humanitarianly. For humanity. So I wrote an article about the dance of humanity. I'll have to send it to you all. But I love dancing, and I think we need
I
to
love dancing too.
Dance with our conversation and with our communication and connection, and our business and our customers and everything. It is to watch the flow.
I think we need to evaluate and revisit human connection here, Pauline.
Yes.
The human connection is very important. So let's revisit there. Sometimes we lose it because of maybe because of other challenges and trials, tribulations, and we kind of forget the connection that we need to build. The foundation of humanity is connection between us.
It's a bit like electricity. Unless you plug it in the wall or you turn the switch on, it doesn't work. And that's what we need to do, is to tune in, plug in, switch on to each other.
Yes.
Okay.
Keith said, rather do equity. Yeah, equity is a good word, I think, over equality.
Okay.
So are we tackling any of the other?
Are we moving on to the next question, or are we still on the anyway?
Well, I'd like that one. How do you empower senior citizens? I think, as I'm a senior citizen, I think we should tackle that one.
Yes. Okay. How do you empower the senior citizens? Yeah.
I think myself, I'm a lively baby boomer. I'm 71, but my parents died in their 90s, so I've got another 30 years to go. I'm going to last to 101, remember. But I think it's about engaging senior citizens in activities of life rather than considering that they've finished. And just don't put them in old people's homes. Create different collaborative communities where you mix generations together and allow them to use their imagination and their energy for life. A lot of people in their 70s and 80s have amazing things still working, and we can engage them and bring them into society rather than marginalizing them. That's what I feel.
I agree with you. Nobody should stop, even at any age for that matter. You know what I'm saying? I mean, my late father worked until until he was almost 80, and he was still working, and his brain was still functioning.
Yes.
There's no reason why you should stop, moving or whatever it is that you're happy doing, even though you're at that age. I don't see the reason why you should.
Yes. I like that. Terry says.
I think it's a natural evolving thing in senior citizens being more active, being more involved in society, whatever that may be, as time goes by, because people are less and less likely to agree with you retire at this age and then that's it. You just sit back on your pension. That's becoming an old narrative with people proving that you don't need to do that. And actually you live more of an abundant life by doing the exact opposite to that, in terms of continuing to contribute to society, continuing to challenge yourself, continuing to explore yourself, grow and develop, wherever that may be, whatever you empower yourself in what activity or business you do. But it's changing over time, I think. And I think it's naturally evolving over time with the opportunities that come around for people being able to connect with people around the world. I think global connection and just the internet and everything allows people to empower themselves at whatever age, and particularly senior citizens. But like you said, Pauline, it needs to be available.
Yes.
It's not just a case of, okay, you're not feeling like yourself, so here you go, you go in this home, because there's still that sort of, I don't know how you'd how to explain it, but there's still large pockets of the elderly that just sit in that space and deteriorate as a result of sitting in that space. And it's at that level that needs to be challenged, I feel.
And that's the other thing. For me, it comes back to value. There's a lot of value that older people have that younger people can learn from, and vice versa. And there's lots of good studies around the world where communities are grandparent, grandchildren, even though not family, but that connecting those age bands, it serves to help the millennials understand and the older people to understand them. And I think that is the model I would, the kind of ecosystem I would dream of for our future would include those kind of places.
I think that both generations can learn from each other. I mean, we learn from them, they learn from us. There are things that we never knew what they did before that we could really take, as a system that we can change. And they themselves, I mean, it's learning together.
And again, also belief systems, right, are important here, because if you're already at age and you believe that you don't have anything to contribute to anymore, or you don't have value to add, or you do not matter anymore, that does not help at all. So I think that generational conversation still needs to happen, where people are involved and they have still active roles to play that makes them feel engaged and still very much needed and welcome. And
absolutely. Terry's put another great comment up that his father's in his 80s and he advocates sustainability with his little village in UK. It's all about, it's what we started with. It's all about our mindset. And
amazing, Terry. Good job.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think we can actually actively engage or invite our seniors to, we can actually invite them in. I remember one time when I first got married, and then I visited my husband's grandmother, and then she sat there and told me a story for 1 hour. So basically, nobody actually paid any attention, and there were family members. Oh, Mom, don't say that over again. You said that story more than 100 times. But for me, from my perspective, she was just an ordinary lady. She's in her late 80s, but the story she told, how the Korean War broke, how she moved. She climbed on the train to move to the south. All the war stories, it was like better than a movie. It was so. First of all, the story itself was very entertaining. She wasn't a very advanced lady or anything like that, but her life story itself, that she survived for more than 80 years, that itself was very, very interesting. And the other thing is that I could understand some of the value system of my husband or his family, what his family experienced. I could understand the roots of, so understand the deep understanding between the differences between me and my husband, for example. So I think we can actually sometimes actively ask or engage them to tell more stories, and we embrace that their wisdom for us, for for our
again, learning from each other. They learn from us and we learn from them.
Yeah.
Active. Agree with you, Jane. Agree with you. That was a good point indeed.
That's right. Really a fascinating story.
Yeah, I just feel that everybody is valuable. If we have that mantra in our life that everybody is valuable, whoever they are, old or young, any culture, any diversity, any ability or disability, everybody is interesting and fascinating. There still might be people that you're not necessarily totally in tune with, but you set out with that value to embrace everybody with a smile. Then we can change the world.
Themselves, right? To help people believe that themselves too, that they are indeed as valuable and as worthy and as capable as anyone else, because I believe that that is what we can help others with.
Yes. I use a very simple thing is, instead of saying, what do you do, is asking somebody, so what's really important to you? What's your value in life? What do you value? And it starts the mind thinking in a different way and attaches to here somewhere because, oh gosh, I'm valuable. And so it's shifting from this old world, which is very do it, be it, to be it, do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Terry's got another good one here about lifelong learning is good. I would agree with that. And his niece started an NGO that strives to bring senior citizens back into the world as advisors. And that's it. The wisdom, I always say there's a wisdom waterfall. So the wisdom comes down and it flows back up, but it's sharing that wisdom. Yeah, that's really good.
I agree with you, Terry. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Learning again.
Absolutely. So the only other...
Okay, moving on to the next question. Okay. Okay, so the next question is, how do you empower the youth?
How do you empower the youth?
I think it starts by listening to them and aiming to understand.
Just now we talked about senior citizen.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about the youth.
Well,
I think it's all...
we've all been young once upon a time.
I think it's leading by example to the youth. I mean, walk the talk kind of thing. We as the leaders or something, we need to listen to them, pay a little bit more attention to them, give them positive information, try to get the best out from them. But importantly is by walking the talk. Walking the talk.
I think also, like in terms of education, things could go better and be changed. Like, for instance, emotional education has never been a thing for many, many years. And I believe that children especially could be much helped to get to know themselves better at younger age, to understand their emotions, to understand who they are, what they mean. It's such an important guidance system through your life. It helps you in many, many ways. But if you do not understand how to work with your emotions, then it actually become an obstacle.
So are you saying that go on.
No, that was the point.
So what you said, how do you make them understand themselves? Is that open communication with them? Is that, how do we do that? More open communication, allowing themselves to freely express how they feel?
Exactly.
Yes.
Understanding, okay.
It's also, I think, a term that something that could be picked up on by education, because now the education has mostly been focused around knowledge transfer, just textbooks, and rather than actually learning who you are and what that means and how you want to be in the world. I think that could be something that people can actually be more guided, like mini coaching or mini therapy already from an early age, so that people actually get to know themselves before they end up making all these choices about careers or, whatnot.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally on board with that, what you just said there. In terms, it doesn't matter how much knowledge you have. If you're struggling emotionally, then you'll never be able to implement the knowledge you have that you learn from a textbook or pass an exam. If you're struggling with your self-identity, or if you're struggling with your emotions, if you're struggling with self-confidence, if you're struggling with all those things, it doesn't matter how much you know, how many exams you pass.
Yeah.
It's still a very Victorian, I'm talking about the UK, it's still a very Victorian way of educating the youth, because there's still a very heavy emphasis on passing exams. Just learn it, dump it, pass the exam. There needs to be much more educating from, why am I feeling like this? Why do I feel like this? Is it normal? Am I normal to feel like this?
Yeah.
Sharing, and again, empowering them to understand that what they're feeling is perfectly normal. And how do I navigate this feeling? How do I navigate this feeling so I don't repeat it over and over again? Because how we feel in our youth can then raise its head in our 40s. I'm talking from my experience. Things I didn't know how to deal with in my teens was still causing me problems in my late 30s and early 40s.
Yeah, same.
So if I was able to deal with that, and I was taught and nurtured in that way, then it wouldn't happen.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's all having a more open communication with the young people. Instead of telling them what to do, we need to have a more open communication for them to understand them, and for them to understand them more.
The empowerment has to come.
It's not like, what I say you have to do. Sorry?
Yeah. Well, the empowerment has to come in the school. And I think the school system has to change, and education has to change. And I know there are lots of pockets of that across the world. And Sir Ken Robinson, who probably you all know, who passed recently, but he talked so much about, schools are killing creativity. We've got to engage the kids in their own ideas right from the start. So we need to change the system and the way they're taught. And I was recently talking to somebody who runs a school in Kuala Lumpur, actually, and she said, we don't teach the kids, we coach them. We have negotiation skills as part of the curriculum, and it's fantastic. And she's gaining.
But that doesn't happen to all schools in KL, though. It doesn't happen to all schools in KL, though, Pauline.
Oh no, that's what I'm saying. It's like this across the world, even in America and England. It's the minor rather than the major, but it's coming. The shift is now. And that's where we're going to keep on talking these messages to change the global shift is right from parenting, schooling, loving, intimacy, family, business. I talk about life at work, and it's one of the things that I believe that women have empowered the workplace is to be more emotional. So we've got to empower the schools to be more emotional and not stuck on the curriculum and the paperwork.
I agree.
It's really difficult though, Pauline, isn't it? It's really difficult because the government likes statistics. The government likes to see what schools are doing, passing certain amounts of grades. So it's very difficult to measure how well you're coaching and empowering a youngster with regards to how well he's dealing with his emotional state. You can't measure that.
No.
So it's going to take some time for that to filter in, but it is great that schools are taking it on board. And it's generally I'm not sure what they're called, but like you say, Pauline, there's so many small pockets of schools that are happening in the UK, and you've obviously seen it in the US as well. So yeah, the more of that, the more we can encourage that, the better. But the problem is you can't measure it.
No, like you said earlier, there's no point being a grade A student, but you're battling with your emotions. There ain't no point. And then you're going to take that emotional trauma and bring it into adulthood. So let's tackle that from young. You
Yeah,
know, I don't want to be the best student, but I'm having this traumatic or whatever experience. So, and then you have to deal with that when you're an adult, when you're 30 and 40.
Well,
That's not the way to go.
in leadership, right? Like even in leadership right now in business, it's more common to integrate emotional
Intelligence,
skills
emotional
and,
intelligence.
and focus on emotional development rather than only on technical or intellectual skills. So I think that's also a great sign that this is already being embraced as something that isn't just a soft skill. No, it's very necessary in order for you to
It
be
is.
able to.
well, it is. I think we
Yes.
need a lot more people like Terry, who says here, my goal is to empower 1.5 billion
Good
youth
on
by
you, Terry. Good on you.
Yes, that's a
Fantastic.
great vision.
Yeah, keep going.
and that is superb, and that's where the shift will come, because another unfortunate statistic is the number of young people, especially young boys, who are committing suicide. So we need to make this shift happen at so many levels, and it goes back to having conversations at the home, in whether they're online or they're on this. And this is one of the dangers with young kids, and you get these kids say, well, my friend blocked me, and you go, well, why don't you just phone her or go around and knock on the door?
Back to schools. When I was younger, we didn't have any counseling center or counselor. But right now, my young boy is 15, and they do have an in-house teacher, come counselor kind of thing. So I think it's slowly making changes right now, which is a good thing, where they can actually go and see the school counselor. Yeah.
But the whole
Yeah.
thing is, I think one of the things that's so important is that we're all experts on this summit as well. Terry is also an expert on the summit. It's so empowering to have us all here, and also have you guys part of this as well, because we just really need to spread this shift out into the world, and that's where this is fantastic. And Andrea is amazing for putting this together. I'm so impressed.
Precisely. Thank you.
Yes.
I know.
thank you.
You're phenomenal. You're super amazing. I mean, seriously, I don't know how you do it, Andrea, but I'm like, really, my hat. Kudos to you. Congratulations for bringing us all together. Love you. Love you.
Hi, everyone. You're talking about me?
Yes.
We are.
I was here all the way.
Super.
I was listening to you from the background. I was just blushing, so I was waiting until the red color goes away.
Credit is you. Credit is you.
I'm super happy. I think it's amazing, and your discussion is also great. I will ask Noor to mute herself so that I can talk a little bit. Okay, thank you. So I'm really, really thankful for you being here. And I think we did a lot of great discussions here. And I think you can see from the comments it's picking up. So I really urge the people to go to the YouTube channel and watch again everything. And what I love about this conversation, I think what you already said, I can summarize it up, because Jane knows me also. We were talking about this, and I told Jane that, you will come to here and you will see, I see Pauline, how I will be, or how I imagine myself, when I will be older, or I can connect to Stefan, right? I was telling to Jane that Pauline is my future self, right? Or something like this, because she's always connecting, not it's not the age. I'm just saying that you are talking about dancing, you are coming from that angle, and I'm coming from the same angle. And I was having some sessions with Jane about cultural differences, and that's how we met, and that's how we connected, really. So all of you is bringing some colors, and when you look at this summit, I was concentrating on diversity, because you mentioned no labels and I mentioned no labels, because I think that's where we have to go. So the goal here is to come together, lose those labels, and finally come together and work together. Because what I see in the world is the problem, that there are a lot of bubbles, there are a lot of beautiful people around, but there is no connection in between the bubbles. So what we make together, what I did at this summit, I connected the bubbles because I saw people working all around the world, because you cannot say from the 108 that there is one person who is not doing something for others. And when you put all this together, then you will see that what we can do together. So all these 108 people, if we can keep together and we bring more people to this circle, right, to this big bubble, then after that, imagine the power, because most of the time with empowerment, the problem is that it's not going, I told it already in some of the sessions today, that people are at the edge of the rock, right? They are almost going over the step, they almost do the next step, but then they just falter because there is something manipulating them, like call it consumerism, or call it society, or call it parental issues or anything, and they don't do the next step. And then when they don't do the next step, they just need a little trigger, a little push, positive push, and then they can just go. And I could cry. I'm watching you all day long, and I was talking about this, that there is none of you is talking about nonsense. All of you is talking value, pure value. And if you go back and watch the YouTube videos, I think this is what is our value, that all of you has something to give, something amazing. You see my cries, my tears are coming out. So I'm always emotional. So
sending love
no,
to you.
but that's what I see, that this is the worth of coming together and being honest and being yourselves. And we are already at the stage when we can be ourselves. And that's how we can help others to get there, because we, all of us who are already there, need to elevate others to help.
Yep.
And we don't have to tell them what to do or how to do, right? We just have to give them some encouragement, some positive encouragement, and they can do it. It's like a good trainer for a good football coach or anyone, because they just give the push. Because, or a trainer, right, Stefan? Like I work with many women, and there is some problem at one stage that we don't have this, okay, I sit down and I don't do it. And then if there is a trainer, you will do it for sure. I have it in dancing with my couples, in every coaching. You need the push to go one step further from outside, so that you can step over it. So I'm really, really thankful for you. I think it was an amazing conversation. I could talk for a longer time, but I just leave it for you.
Thank you so much, Andrea.
Andrea.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us. You're super
it's really
amazing.
Nice.
Thanks, everybody.
Yes, you were amazing. Let's close this session, and thank you for the audience for staying with us. They were staying for so long. Thank you, Terry. I should have included you in this session, I think, because Terry is still commenting, and he's one of the experts from Malaysia. And I was like, okay, I think Terry should have been part of the empowerment panel.
Another summit happening, Andra. Another summit.
Time.
Looking forward to another summit, okay?
And I have to tell, we learned so much that the next one will be so, I mean, it's already phenomenal, but technically I improved like 3 days. Now I know everything. we fix your Pauline in the afternoon, we fix your problems with the sessions in the morning. So we already know the solution. So next time when we do it, it will be perfect.
There's always a first.
Yes, exactly. But without the first, you couldn't go and you couldn't improve, right? You need the first to break through, and after that you can improve. So thank you for that, Pauline. It was amazing.
There is no failure but feedback. There is no failure but feedback. Okay.
Exactly. Positive feedback. I love it. I live for them, because that's how we grow. So it's
absolutely.
So Terry is laughing in the comments. So next time you will be here. All right. So thank you, guys. Have a good evening, morning, wherever you are. I try to get home, and see you tomorrow early in the morning with some other sessions, and hope you can join in.
Take care, all of you.
Bye. Bye, guys. Close the session now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It began with a bold vision to build It began with a bold vision to build KL Metropolis, a development that would establish a new international trade and exhibition district in Malaysia, built in partnership with the government by NASA Group's property arm, NASA TTDI. The crown jewel of this grand vision is the Malaysia International Trade and Exhibition Centre, the preferred international destination for exhibitions and events. Like the fine gold and silver threads of the Songket weave that inspired its facade design, MyTech is the embodiment of refined craftsmanship, creativity and precision. As Malaysia's largest exhibition centre, MyTech's functional spaces are unprecedented. Primed for exceptional displays, surrounded by state-of-the-art facilities and amenities. This iconic structure affirms a commitment to innovative excellence. It is a showpiece of engineering ingenuity. An enduring icon built for a new Malaysian era of success.
Gender stuff. Yes, exactly.
Your life is the wall.
I'm not. How can I come live again? I was not. Because of video. Hi guys. Last mistake for the day. Enjoy. I go to sleep. I have to sleep so that tomorrow there are not so many mistakes.